week, so no
Right,
news is good news.
right, right. Well, that's good because I know it's been a rough month, I think, right? But right?
It was a rough first semester, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you guys are live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Norwalk Board of Education Finance Committee. My name is Sherry McCready Pritchett, and with me tonight are board members Diana Carpio and Karen Nelson Bakey. Also with us is CFO Mr. Lunda Osmani and Budget Director Ms. Christian Harsman. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the October 9th, 2024 minutes.
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Bakey. That motion is passed. There does not appear to be anybody on for public comments. Unless I'm missing something, I don't think I see anybody. If not, we will move on. The next item on the agenda is the October 2024 budget transfers.
Kristen will share her screen and will walk us through the transfers.
Okay.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we'll just run down the list, not too many of them. They're basically two different categories. The IEP changes due to IEP requirements, and then taking the carryover that was given to us by the city, the carryover that from year end, and putting it into the correct accounts. As you know, the BET approved it, not a lot of carryover, but a portion of it is due to purchase orders that were outstanding at year end, and the other piece, a very minimal piece, we get to keep that in a non-lapsing fund, which we call Fund 42. So really, this is just taking it out of the holding account and putting it to the correct account numbers. So starting at the top for 34,000, this is just an org count correction. It was a regular education para, and they just used a principal's account when it was set up in the budget. So that's strictly a budget code correction. The second one is due to IEP requirement changes and caseload changes. And this is taking the allocation from the budget from a West Rocks paraeducator, sped paraeducator, and shifting it 60% Kendall, 40% Tracy. The next one for 56,000 is also related to caseload adjustments, taking that from a district-wide sped teacher to a CGS sped teacher. Next one on the list is 41,000. This is taking, it's a full-time teacher, but we only need to make an adjustment to half of it, the FTE, and it's taking that half from 56 holding account to the Wolf Pit account, and this is due to caseload adjustments. The next one on the list, 46,000, this was just a processing error. It was processed twice, this budget transfer. So this is just to be transparent and just show everyone we need to reverse that. The next one here is also a caseload adjustment, and this is taking a sped paraeducator from Nathan Hale and shifting it to where the allocation is needed at Sono. The remainder of the transfers here are moving it from the carryover holding account, as I had mentioned, that was approved by the BET, into the correct spending account. So if you look, the object code on the left or the whole account number is exactly the same. It's 157-52000, which is the finance holding account where the city deposited the money. 150 is the holding account, and then 57 means finance. So you could see all the pieces there, we're moving it there. And for example, the first one is 563 for 90,000, and these are just carryover items delayed from the settlement process. I can go through them all if you want, but this was already shown at a point in time when we asked for the carryover. So if you want, do you want me to talk about the rest, or you see what's happening here?
I'm good unless you ladies want to see, because I looked at it pretty closely earlier. But if you guys, I have no problem with that.
No, I'm good too. Thank you.
Good. Okay.
Okay, and the total of the transfers is 425,649.
Okay. So because of the amount, we need to vote on that? Right?
To move it to the full board.
To move it to the full board, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Are you all set, Kristen? Should I go ahead and do that? Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. unless you have any
Okay.
questions.
I mean, it's just interesting again that more than 50% of the transfer is going to specialized learning costs. I guess my question would be, are there any of the transfers not outside of the funding from the city that we may need later? You know, because we made significant amounts that were transferred over. So is there any sense that that may create challenges later?
What do you mean by that?
Yes. Yes, in the sense that, we're moving savings from within.
Mhm.
And I think I'd shared that probably around January or February, we'll be coming to you with a clearer picture because
Okay.
I think we'll get to a point where we will have exhausted the internal transfers that we can make. And
Mhm.
we did share that at some point we may need to go, and the mayor's aware that we may need to go to them for a special appropriation because even in our carryover accounts, we
Right.
had budgeted this year to spend 2.5 million from carryover.
Mhm.
And as you can see, we only carried over this year 60,000.
Right.
So we're kind of out of funds in
Right.
the carryover funds. So you're absolutely right, Sherry.
Okay, ladies, I will entertain a motion to approve the 2024 October budget transfers.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Carpio, second by Ms. Bakey, and that motion has passed. The next item will be FY 25 year-to-date budget review.
Thank you. I'll go over this one, and
Mhm.
you do have the line items in the package.
Mhm.
You also have a narrative of the budgets by the categories. So I'll just have Kristen kind of stay on this slide, and then I'll just walk through some of the variances. As you can see, so far we've spent about 30%, a little over 30% of the budget. This is as of October, so we are actually 33% into the year. So we're
Mhm.
trending a little bit under compared to where we would be.
Mhm.
It is somewhat misleading because it depends on our biggest driver, obviously, is salaries and benefits. So depending on when that October payroll hits, it may show that slight deviation. So for example, last year, by the end of October, we had one less payroll than one more payroll than we had this year. So it
Mhm.
seems like we're underspending in salaries, but we're actually not. It's just a number of payrolls. It's one payroll less. But having said that, our
Mhm.
personnel costs, the 100s categories, they are at a little over 11% under where we were year to date last year. But again, that is the function of that.
Mhm.
The second category is benefits. So you'll also see that benefits is also showing about 18% below year to date where we were this time last year. And again, that is a function of the timing of those transfers. We make quarterly transfers from the general
Mhm.
fund into the health insurance account where we incur those expenses. Our 300 series are at about 17% under. Again, in this area, what we're seeing is other professional services are about $400,000 less than this time last year. That
Mhm.
is largely due to just timing of those payments. We anticipate that our overall other professional services will be about where it was. The other thing that I want to point out this year too is after the budget was approved, the mayor did provide an additional $1.8 million funding from the city's ARPA share. You
Mhm.
recall the city received $5 million in ARPA.
Right.
So what we did, we identified items in this budget that we pulled out of the general fund and we're paying those through the ARPA accounts. So this is only showing the portion that's impacted in the general fund side, but there's some additional expenses that are paid out of the ARPA grants. And then the other one, the big driver, obviously, we've kind of talked about special education. That continues to be one that we're watching. Student transportation year to date is about 10% higher than where it was last year. When it comes to out of district tuition, line 563, right now we're showing that we're about 530,000 less than we were last year, but we're projecting that we will spend about 11.2 million. and the budget in this account was only 10.1 million. So this goes back to that question about will we run out of money through the end of the year?
Hmm.
And I think those are really those are the highlights from this section. And I know that, Dan, I just got your question regarding NPS funding is allocated to Barry McMahon and North High School football programs. I can look and get you the exact detail, but it is included in the budget book. We actually detail that in every page of the budget book. And I can share that to the finance committee and you can forward to the individual that requested that information.
Actually, if I just look in the budget book, I can copy those pages. And send
Okay,
it. Thank you.
you're welcome. Are there any questions with the year-to-date financials?
So the only bump ups are the other services and then the equipment, which has to do with the tech replacements that we
It's
have
the
to
tech
make.
replacements, yes.
Right.
And some of that is timing, but some of that
Right.
is, we have a replacement cycle.
Right.
And so we kind of just follow that cycle. I remind people
Mhm.
we are a one-to-one district. So that means at minimum, we have
Right.
at minimum 11,000 devices for each student.
Mhm.
And we have about 2,000 employees, 1,700 teachers who also have devices. So yes, our equipment budget
Right.
is one that we don't really have a lot of control over.
Right. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments? It's pretty straightforward. So the next and final item is FY26 budget development update.
Sure. So what we have here, I'll first talk about the flyer.
Mhm.
We're inviting people to come to our third town hall, community town hall. We're holding 3 this year. We had 1 in person. We did a
Mhm.
virtual one last week, Wednesday, and this will be a third, our community town hall that's specifically focusing on the Board of Ed budget. This will be Wednesday, November 20th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Jefferson Elementary. Plenty of parking, so we are excited about this one, and we look to invite people to come attend this public hearing, this community town hall as well. As far as where we are with the development of the budget, I kind of shared some of the things we're looking at in FY26, obviously is addressing the $1.8 million that the city funded us through their portion of the ARPA. Those ARPA funds have gone away. So one of the things that we have to determine is how do we continue providing services with that revenue stream having gone. We anticipate going live with a South Norwalk school this upcoming school year. We know that with that, there are some added expenses with that new school, custodial, electricity, and all of those things. So we're building the budget, factoring that in. And I think the other thing that central office has been putting together our central support budgets. We are meeting as a cabinet on Monday to review where we are with that in order to develop the superintendent's recommendation. Our hope is that when we do meet on the 20th of November, we will share with the community some preliminary numbers of FY26 and what are some of the drivers, at least, that we're anticipating, and maybe have some dollars or at least percentages tied associated with that. Kristen and I were briefly talking before this call began about some of the drivers, but I just wanted to make people aware that the budget development has began and inviting them to the November 20th meeting. And we will have some preliminary numbers at that time to share with the community and the public. And the cabinet will be meeting Monday to start having some review of numbers.
Okay. I was going to ask, did
budget.
you have a ballpark as to what you think the new school would add to it? I mean, obviously, we're going to have the normal drivers, which would include contractual obligations and some of the other things related to specialized learning. But you just said you're going to mention at the next meeting, so I don't want to put you on the spot.
Thank you. Yes, we'll mention at the next meeting. We're still kind of trying to tie
Right.
everything together,
Right.
but we'll know for sure
Right.
Mid next week, we'll have a number and we'll share that with you.
Sounds good.
Linda, so question, with the new
Yes.
school, how do you budget or figure out a dollar amount on expenses? It's, for example, electricity at Sono.
Mhm.
Right. So for example, so we know the square footage, we know the type of units that we have in there. And therefore that's actually one of the easier numbers to figure out, because we have, for example, we've had new buildings like Cranberry that came on when we redid Jefferson. So we have a good understanding of the number of rooms, the square footage, and we also have the unit cost of utilities, whether it's gas or electric or whatever we use. And that's how we determine that. We work with our facilities team to come up with that number. And we do that not just for the new building, we do that for all of our buildings when we're budgeting for the upcoming year.
Mhm. And that
But
school
there
is
are
gonna be-
things that,
Oh.
yeah, and there are things that, utilities, we know that we're gonna have custodial, we know that we're gonna have security expenses, and all of these are contract based, so we know exactly, for example, when we
Mhm.
talk about security, we know what they're gonna charge us per square footage, and we have an estimate of what it would take
Mhm.
to have security at the South Norwalk School.
So basically, you can kind of use another school as a baseline to start. And obviously, as we move forward, some of those numbers may change, but you certainly could use, a current school, like you mentioned, Jefferson or Cranberry, kind of as a baseline
Yes,
for utility costs. And that school is going to be gas, right? I mean, I think gas is going to be driving or electric or both?
both.
Both, okay.
Both. And I think I saw the article, there was some conversation about whether we would be able to do solar. And I believe I read that solar is not an option to the extent that we thought it would be.
Right.
That is very unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
Mhm. All right.
Linda, how was the turnout at the virtual town hall last week?
So at the virtual town hall, I think it wasn't as much as we had hoped. At the virtual town hall, I think we had maybe 10 or 12 people show up at the virtual town hall.
Mhm.
We did have a lot more responses on the survey. On the survey, we had almost 80 responses.
Oh, wow.
So I think if you combine the 80 responses, the virtual town hall, and that first town hall that we had at Nathan Hill, we've engaged almost 120, 130 members of the public in this budget
Right.
process. And we've started to put together, we have a good understanding of what the themes are and what they would like our focus to be. And as we build this budget, we're taking those into account. Many of those were things we would do anyway, but it's been
Right.
extremely helpful to be able to have that input ahead of time before the superintendent has put forward her recommendation.
Mhm.
That's great. It's really good to hear.
Sounds good. Oh, I don't have anything else unless you ladies have any other questions or comments to add. It's been a very thorough presentation, a lot of information here, a lot of numbers.
As usual.
Yes, well, thank
Yes,
you for
and
reading the
thank you.
material.
And thank you for all the hard work.
Absolutely.
you
It's
both.
very fluid.
Thank
and
you.
nice. It
Thank you,
changes every
guys.
day for you. Enjoy.
So-
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
All right, guys,
So
we
we
are
need a motion?
we are adjourning our meeting at 6:19 p.m.
Thank you,
Thank
Sherry.
you.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Take care.